Hello everybody and welcome to another Future of the Fortress read-along. These videos I read the Future of the Fortress posts. If you're unfamiliar with what the Future of the Fortress is, it is a on the forums brainstorming session kind of talking about far off in the reaches features usually, or just doing general Q&A about Dwarf Fortress. This isn't really stuff that's coming soon usually, it's generally stuff that is either being worked on or planned in the far future. So, before we do that, we're going to dive in and read the mission status and just general updates from Zach and Tarn before we read the Q&A. If you'd like to take part in this Q&A, you can do that via the link in the description. Simply go make an account on the forums, which apparently takes about a month to get them approved right now. And then after you do that, you can then just ask questions as part of the same thread. Let's dive in. Mission status. Three Toe writes, have you ever held your emotions so deep down you thought you would explode? The rush, the release, is a feeling so great you have to express it in song. We sing a song of multiple threads, multiple branches coming together to make something greater, something faster. You will see soon what two programmers can do. Some might fawn over the new menus. Some may cruise through the new optimization. All will say it was worth the wait. Congratulations to the generous Three Toe. Thank you, Zach. Fun with numbers, Tarn Adams writes, aka Toady1. We were hoping to get the STL2 stuff over on the main branch right before we left for Game Access 2023 at the end of May, but didn't get it posted. So we should be doing that pretty soon. This will be good. The multi-threading requires a bit more testing, so it's off by default, but it will be available even on the main branch through the settings. This speeds up the game quite a lot. Putnam has done an excellent job modernizing the code. I have an adventurer running around, and we're just getting started on the menus and audio, etc. This should be very exciting, though we also expect it to take some time before it can be released. Adventure mode has many options and menus, and the report and ammo, etc. improvements are still coming down the line. Sales up to 14,000 from the Kickfox sale bump, and the daily averages are around 200 to 300 copies. Everything is still behaving sensibly, and we'll see how patching this month alters things. But we don't expect any big fluctuations until adventure mode is finally together. This daily rate of sales still covers everybody that's now working on the project, lots of people, and other Bay 12 expenses, which is good. We'd still be okay even if it slumps a bit more. So now on to the forum questions of the Future of the Fortress. First, we have a double quote from Christoph PL and Astrabitoder, I think is how you say that. Is there any chance at all that backing up and syncing saves in the Steam Cloud service will be implemented in the future? I have two PCs that I play the game on, and it would be handy to have saved games synced between them, in addition to having a backup in case something goes from with the hard drive. And Tarn's response is, saves can be very large, so I don't think it can be a default option, given how long it would take to sync saves. It might be possible to make it optional, but the fast way of setting up a sync folder doesn't seem to do that. And we're open to doing it, but it might require a small workshop-like push to get it to function. The next question comes in from Pilbo, and they say, in the 50.08 notes, allowed most water-based jobs that use buckets to use partially filled water buckets in addition to empty buckets. Which jobs can't use partially filled buckets? And Tarn quotes Putnam, so I will read her post, and she says, I could not tell you, for they will only fail to do if I didn't find them. The next question comes in from Shaunai Dweller and Listig, and they say, are there any plans to add the remaining export functions to Legends mode? The pops and history files are probably the most important bit, at least to me as a modder anyway. And Tarn's response is, yeah, we'd like to get everything back. Anything that requires a full menu rather than a simple button is just slightly lower priority, so XML came first. The next question comes in from Vanzetti, and they say, are there plans to further expand the personality model, to have dwarves interact more with the community in which they live? For example, to enable scenarios such as a dwarf reacting with jealousy to a spouse having an affair, a dwarf trying to mend a relationship between two friends who had a fight, or a dwarf experiencing peer pressure to something they didn't really want. Example, joining the military because all their acquaintances did. And Tarn's response is, these are all reasonable, of course. They don't fit explicitly in their existing near-term plans, which are shaped around villains and armies and magic, etc. But little things like this occasionally get added because we're in the neighborhood, especially with the villain plots and relationships and certain magic effects. The sorta recent divorces came from the first half of Villains, as I recollect, and jealous lovers would fit right in, etc. Recent being 2020. The next is a two-parter from Grimmy, and they say, is it possible for one dwarf to affect the mood of another? And do you have any future plans for how dwarves affect one another, action and reaction scenarios? 1. For example, perhaps a general who gets excited while in combat can cause others to become excited and spur them forward, while the same would be true if they are terrified and cause others to flee with them. And 2, have you considered adding a counseling room or other method of helping dwarves regain control of their mood, or magic enchantments, where dwarves who are upset could seek help, and with beauty of the room and skill of the counselor causing the level of mood buff? I would just like to take this moment to remind everybody that the mayor, baron, kings and queens, and religious figures all act as this. Dwarves can go see them and cry on their shoulder, yell at somebody in charge. They get the little attend meeting thing next to their name when they're upset. They go speak to that figure, and then that figure gets empathy, and the dwarf gets a positive mood for yelling at somebody or crying on somebody in charge. So this is already in the game. And Tarn's response is, the mayor and priests already work as a counseling room. I think insofar as that kind of thing is going in. Infectious emotions aren't really in the game as far as I remember, and the situation is more or less as the previous question by Vanzetti. The next question comes in from Vatic, and they say, list of entity position tokens and graphics. Are we likely to get these back? And Tarn quotes Putnam, so I will read her response. And she says, those should work, and in fact, I've seen the code that allows for positions to be used. If it's not working, that's odd. And Tarn's response is, yeah, if those entity position ones aren't working, that's something odd and bug-shaped, since the code is more or less the same with the ones that do work. The next question comes in from Dick But the Great, and they say, what's going on under the hood exactly when a Felmood dwarf grabs an intelligent hidden fun stuff creature? Why does it look like probabilities are weighted differently depending on the reagent material used during the Fel mood? From a lot of testing, it appears that in Fel mood instances involving intelligent hidden fun stuff gemstone person being used as a reagent, specifically resulting, the resulting artifact will either be left or right gauntlet 50% of the time, which is odd. And Tarn's response is, for corpses, it mainly seems to care about leather versus bone versus other. For the other category, where gemstones would be, it adds scaled clothing of all sorts, but also lots of different craft type items. So I'm not sure why gauntlets should be so frequent. Helm, mask, and leggings should also show up as well as the crafts. But this is ancient stuff, so anything could be going on / wrong. Another question from Pilbo, and they ask, are the black and shadowy sprites for procedurally generated creatures considered the final art, or are they stand-ins for the time being? And Tarn's response is, the feeling at the time was that they were probably a stepping stone for a more colorful system. That still seems right, but they are good for a while. When we're looking more closely at, example, the night trolls and boogeymen, etc., as we do adventure mode graphics, we'll see where it goes. The next question comes in from Rhino, and they say, early footage of Premium featured more graphicalized tree stumps that did not make it into the final release. My theory is that by extending beyond its own tile space, it created clipping issues. When trees were directly adjacent to other objects, they looked quite epic, however. Might we see them return? And what other kinds of fun graphics ended up on the cutting room floor due to time constraints? I enjoyed watching the evolution of many assets as the game neared release, and I'm also curious if the artists created or referenced 3D models for their later iterations of wagons and siege engines or windmills. They look modeled, and they're some of the finest assets in the game now. And Tarn quotes Eric Blank, so I will read their response, and they say, I bet part of the issue is the fact that trees, like highwoods, can become up to 3x3 tiles wide and have tessellating root tiles around that in 2x2s as well. And Tarn's response is, yeah, there was the same issue with shadows, and also the issue with having multiple trees surrounding a tile and having their roots all print from different directions, which the tree species really compounds the data that needs to be sent to the render tile. And I'm not sure about the windmill, etc., and I have a vague memory that the windmill might have started with a 3D reference, but I don't recall anything for the rest, and I might be wrong about the windmill. Next question comes in from Immortal D, and they ask, what are the news of reinstating keyboard controls? I'm really struggling with the inefficiency of mouse for large designations, plus the loss of macros. Macros are still there, you just have to enable mouse control and use macros as before. And Tarn's response is, macros are in the same form, though maybe they don't play nice with the designation cursor. I thought I tested that part. In any case, there isn't specific news. Putnam has been revamping the interface stuff, including standardizing some list widgets and such. That should really help when we get there. The next question comes in from the Goomba98, and they say, why can't I find the filter options for assigning units to zones, such as showing the only grazing animals for pastures? And Tarn quotes a Curious Cat, so I will read their response, and they say that's because it's something provided by DFHack and not the vanilla game. I just want to add in again that it's amazing how often this happens in my chat. Someone will be like, why did they not add this feature? And it's like, because it's DFHack, not vanilla. They're different things. The next question comes in from Beeg, and they say, what's left on the to-do list before work porting Adventure Mode over to the Steam version can begin? Adventure Mode was always my favorite mode. And over the updates between now and the Myth and Magic update, will any other minor magical activities and effects be added similar to the divination dice that were added a while back, only in Adventure Mode? And Tarn's response is, I have a little adventurer running around and rendering again, and we're just going to have to do everything simultaneously now, so what's on the list doesn't really enter into it. And it's anybody's guess, the underground rewrite of the endgame-ish stuff for the Steam release was something like that. The next question comes in from Vanzetti, and they say, are you satisfied with the way Magma currently behaves? Were you ever interested in making it more realistic? For example, people cannot sink into real magma, as it is roughly 2 to 3 times more dense than living tissue. You bounce off the top and burst into flames. And Tarn's response is, it's a mixed bag. Real magma would also cool off, which is a tougher question for fantasy magma, I think. People burning to death on top of the magma would be fine with me, though. A question comes in from a Curious Cat, and they say, if Gorlaks have the good tag and are supposed to be peaceful, sociable creatures, why are Gorlaks that come from the caverns technically marked as hostile? And Tarn's response is, yeah. The Gorlak was never really done any justice, since the underground societies are all terribly underspecified right now, and Gorlaks even more than the underground animal people. The game just isn't set up for them currently. The next question comes in from Sofa Anthel, and they say, currently, the underworld is a giant cave with demons and eerie glowing pits that sometimes connects with the upper world through towers in dark fortresses. That's rather bland compared to other parts of the game. Do you have any plans for the underworld pre-magic, after which it will presumably be overhauled and left completely up to world generation? For example, adding something valuable there to make it worth venturing into, or maybe creating underworld structures like fortresses and pits with cages and other evil contraptions of hellish depravity. And Tarn's response is, the adamantine is the valuable thing, as the doorkeeper replied, and the demon invasion is the punishment. It's a simple thing, and after the latest changes, I'm not sure we're going to fiddle with it more before the actual rewrite. And that brings us to the end of the Future of the Fortress posts. This has been a bit of a short one, but I just wanted to say thank you for joining me on this little journey. If you would like to, once again, read these posts for yourself, there's a link down in the description, and of course you can take part by simply joining the forums, which I've been told by a couple of people takes about a month right now to get accepted. So might as well sign up soon if you would like to get an account. And of course, this is all far off in the future stuff, with the exception of the recent stuff that was mentioned in this Q&A, and I just want to say thank you to those of you who've been watching this, because fun fact, this is the 24th one of these that I've done monthly, which means I've been covering Future of the Fortress on this channel now for 2 whole years. Yeah, it's been a while. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you would like to see more like it, there's a huge playlist of them, 23 others in fact, and as well as more Dwarf Fortress on this channel than you could reasonably watch in a lifetime. If you would like to see my face while I play video games on the internet, you can find me at twitch.tv/BLINDIRL, and my patrons are on the screen as I'm speaking. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.